Clerk, and thank you, everybody, for bearing with us while we resolved the issues. Thank you, Mr. Purvis and Mr. Irmuth, for staying with us during this time. I appreciate that. So basically, I will just continue on where we were at, and so just very quickly, as I indicated, that please speak. Before you speak, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you're ready to speak, you may click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. When you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. To raise a point of order during the meeting, committee members should ensure their microphone is unmuted and say point of order to get the chair's attention. In order to ensure social distancing in the committee room, if you need to speak privately with the clerk or the analyst during the meeting, please email them through the committee email address. For those people who are participating in the committee room, please note that masks are required unless seated and when physical distancing is not possible. I will now invite the witness to make their opening statements. Mr. Purvis, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can hear me? Okay, great. And good afternoon to you and committee members. It's a pleasure to be back today in the earliest slot possible, and I'm happy to be joined by Roger Irmuth, Assistant Controller General from our Controller General's office. Mr. Chair, I'll be brief in my remarks because this is an opportunity to receive feedback from the committee regarding our response to the committee's March 10th motion and to answer any questions members may have. We look forward to receiving members' feedback and to be in a position to best meet the needs of the committee. In terms of context, with the unprecedented impact COVID-19 has prioritized measures that respond to the crisis. Funding for COVID-19 priorities was presented within the three supplementary estimates tabled for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Taken together, those estimates presented $159.5 billion in planned spending authorities for organizations across the Government of Canada related to COVID-19 measures. Mr. Chair, it's important to note that these estimates are up to authorities to address the uncertainty in which these measures were brought forward within the context of the pandemic. To further explain planned COVID-19 related spending, additional information was presented in the supplementary estimates, including, for example, a detailed listing of COVID-19 legislation in Part 1, an online annex with additional information on planned COVID-19 expenditures and how this correlates back to the fall economic statement for 2020, including all the authorities together in one easy access panel for GC Infobase. Reporting on actual government expenditures is typically done through three means: on a monthly basis through the fiscal monitor, on a quarterly basis in the quarterly financial reports by departments, and annually through the annual financial report and the public accounts supported by departmental results reports. Given the extraordinary context of the pandemic, TBS reached out to the organizations to gather spending data related to COVID-19 on a monthly basis. The committee's motion on March 10th asked TBS to provide all monthly COVID-19 expenditure reports and spending data from departments. At TBS, our focus is primarily on COVID-19 spending that falls within planned authorities as outlined in the estimates. The ability to effectively track COVID-19 expenditures varies greatly, and these amounts are estimates that have not been audited. As of January 31st, 2020, $123.1 billion for the measures announced in the government's COVID-19 economic response plan that fall within the planned authorities presented in the estimates. In that same timeframe, departments and agencies are also reporting additional estimated expenditures of $2.4 billion related to COVID-19 measures, including salaries and overtime for additional hires, employees reassigned to support COVID-19 initiatives, and operational expenditures, including the acquisition of personal protective equipment and supplies. For the most part, these estimated expenditures are against existing funding in departmental reference levels that have been redirected to address COVID-19 activities. Importantly, they only include the cash payments that have been made to suppliers for goods and services or to grants and contributions recipients. They do not represent the implementation status or results achieved for a measure. and organizations are responsible for determining how best to identify the appropriate estimated expenditures and are best placed to providing explanations on the amounts and corresponding activities. The final expenditures for the 2020-21 fiscal year will be reported in the public accounts, which are expected to be tabled in the fall. The purpose in presenting these estimated basis, a year-to-date basis, is to enable members to compare them to the spending authorities listed on GC Infobase. It also allows members to compare announced measures as part of the fall economic statement in fall 2020. The format provides the information by organization to enable parliamentarians to ask questions and seek explanations from organizations responsible for delivering these measures. As per the committee's request, we will be reporting on a monthly basis going forward, and in line with the Comptroller General's covering note that accompanied the department's response to the motion, we welcome this opportunity to discuss the feedback on the content and the format of the reports going forward. And with that, we're very pleased to hear the views of committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. And we will now go into questioning, and we will start with Mr. McCauley for 6 minutes. Mr. McCauley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Purvis, thanks for joining us. Sorry for the long wait there, but technology being what it is. Let me ask you, you're familiar with the memo that came out March 20th, 2020?
Correct. Yes, I am.
Right. And it says very clearly, and I just want to read it into the record, worldwide risk situation related to COVID is evolving rapidly. In light of this, the Office of the Comptroller General was asked to initiate new reporting requirements to capture associated expenditure costs. The reporting requirement is effective for this fiscal year, 2019-2020, and into 2020-21, critical to understand the whole of government costs related to the response to COVID-19. Now, attached to that also came an Excel file, which sent out to every department, breaking down incremental operations, purchases, travel, grants, contributions. It was pretty clear that that was the information we were looking for. Comptroller General has been receiving that. Your department's been receiving that every single month since March 2020. Why was it that this committee was not provided with that information?
So, Mr. McCauley, we're absolutely committed to financial transparency, as you know. We like to balance, in terms of the response. We wanted to balance three things. We wanted to make sure that we achieved transparency, that we were doing it in a way that was clear and useful for the committee, and in a timely fashion. From our standpoint, and from our standpoint...
Let me just interrupt you there. You talk about transparency. It's very clear your department has this information that we requested. It doesn't take a lot of information. Your department has that information, and this committee asked for it. And yet you decided for usefulness to give us only top-line numbers not broken down. That is not at all useful for this committee or for parliamentarians. Neither is it transparent. This information is available. I actually referenced it in my motion and when we discussed this in committee, and yet you decided not to present that to committee. Further, you're saying, well, a month from now, we'll start providing that. You have this information. We've asked for it. Why will you not provide it to this committee, to parliamentarians, and to Canadians to see the detailed spending?
Mr. McCauley, the purpose of us being here, this is the first hour that we could be here from your motion. And we wanted to ensure that not only that we appeared before the 23rd, but we appeared and are able to deliver any incremental information you or the committee would be seeking. And so from that standpoint, the Secretariat would be happy to put together the building block spending data that goes into these year-to-date information that's included in these reports. We'd be very pleased to put that together. We just need some runway. We just need some runway for the translation to ensure that we're providing
something. not this most recent one, but the one after recent that was closest to this motion being put forward. A simple yes or no. Did you make fun of this committee and myself specifically with the comment of, if they ask for this information, maybe we'll give them a screenshot of the data? Is that true?
I do not recall ever making fun of this committee or making any reference.
Did you make that statement of, if they ask for this information again, we'll just give them a screenshot of the data?
No, I don't recall ever making a comment about
what if I told you that I heard from two different people that you
would
you deny it?
Well, we have a Titan system that is able to produce this information.
I'm not asking that. Did you make that statement, Mr. Purvis?
I do not recall making that statement, Mr. McCauley.
Interesting. What is preventing you from providing this committee with very clearly what was stated in that motion to provide to this committee, to Canadian taxpayers, and to members of Parliament? We asked for specific spending data that's broken down in your Excel file. You've been collecting it month by month by month for the entire past year. It doesn't require runway as you've requested. It doesn't require clarification. It's very clear. We're looking for the broken down spending, and you actually have it. And I know that because that memo has been leaked to me, and I've seen the actual breakdown of what you've asked for in the departments on the Excel spreadsheet. Why are you withholding it from this committee?
Mr. McCauley, in the 7 days that we were to respond to your request, we were able to focus on the 123 billion
Mr.
of spending.
Purvis,
we have no objections.
It doesn't take 7 days for you to take the information you already have in a spreadsheet and provide it to this committee.
We have data in Titan to be able to respond in a disaggregated fashion to that request, and we have no objections.
Been providing
no
this information as the Comptroller General has been asking.
But we have comments attached to all that, and to provide a fulsome response, we would need to translate the comments to ensure that we're able to provide that complete picture. We will do this as soon as we possibly can. Our commitment is to ensure that we're providing.
Your commitment is to transparency. Why did you not try to explain this with the information you gave to this committee?
Thank you.
Line. Did you think that we would not catch on?
There was never any intention to try to skirt around this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. Thank you, Mr. McCauley. We'll now go to Mr. Kazmierczak. 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Mr. Purvis, for your testimony. Thank you very much for turning around a period of time for this committee, and thank you very much for your offer as well of working with this committee to tailor the information that is presented before us. So I really do appreciate that collaboration and cooperation on your part. In your statement, you mentioned government expenditures are published through the financial reports, annual financial reports, and public accounts. Could you explain how else parliamentarians and Canadians can follow the money, quote unquote, on these measures, and where else, in addition, is this financial data reported?
With respect to how the government reports financially, as I said, there is the fiscal monitor that's done on a monthly basis. There's the quarterly financial reports. There's also the end of the year public accounts. I think it's important, just in terms of framing the response to your question, it's important to note that, we don't normally receive or tag spending authorities by department. It's done by vote and by program. And so in March 2020, the Public Health Events of National Concern Payments Act, which Parliament approved, provided the immediate spending authority to address the pandemic. And so this was new for us. And as a system, we to ensure back office tracking of spending for this pandemic triaging. And this was something that we started back in, as Mr. McCauley noted, back in March of 2020, spending. And Mr. McCauley did note the different areas that we were looking at: salaries, overtime, and so forth, spending by event. And I think this is important to note. We wanted to ensure that spending data was available to us, not only from the standpoint of understanding the expenditure momentum as it pertained to COVID spending, but also as it pertained to how it would feed into eventual reporting as pertaining the data. So departmental results reports at the end of the year, any sort of questions that parliamentarians might have regarding the spending authorities that were initiated. We also knew that parliamentarians would have questions about what the pace of that spending would be. And we wanted to ensure the system was prepared to be able to address that as at its earliest convenience.
That information as well, in addition to those three other reports that you mentioned, the fiscal monitor, the quarterly financial reports, and the annual public accounts, it's also online. So anyone at home can also access information on COVID-19 expenditures. Is that correct?
That's correct. And our collection of this through the CFO community, working with departments, has been an ongoing effort. We started doing it through Excel, but we moved into our system of Titan, which allowed for a more efficient data collection exercise starting in September. And so I think consistent with other processes around government, certainly in terms of data collection, in terms of our efforts to work with the CFO community to be able to together on a regular standardized basis, it's been one of innovation and a lot of effort across the board.
No doubt. I do have a specific question for you. In the table under finance, I see $12 billion for the Safe Restart Agreement that is stepping forward, the federal government stepping forward to help provinces in their responsibilities like supporting cities and municipalities, keeping transit going, protecting schools and children, rolling out vaccines. My own community in Windsor, Essex, and Windsor-Tecumseh received $26 million from our federal government from this fund. Can you maybe explain to me why I also see an additional $2 billion for Safe Restart Agreement under PHAC as well? So I see it under the Finance tab, but I also see a portion under PHAC. If you could just explain to me that presented in that manner.
Sure. And just consistent with what I mentioned before, our interest was ensuring that the spending, incremental spending that the government, we wanted to, if we were going to be looking at estimated expenditures, we wanted to be able to map this back to how those authorities have been traversing through Parliament and how those authorities are also have been registered through the fiscal lens of the fall economic statement. And so having those breakdowns and mapping back to the fall economic statement and was critical for us, and we wanted to make sure that parliamentarians could actually do that mapping. That was the focus, really. We had 7 days, and that was really the focus. We wanted to ensure that for the vast majority of the spending, that it was absolutely clear. But we are absolutely committed to ensuring that this committee in Parliament has the detailed information, all the disaggregated data that was used in order to build those year-to-date estimations, the building blocks, as I said earlier, and we're happy to provide that information to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll now go to Ms. Vignola for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Purvis, to be with us today. I was reading the expenses related to COVID-19, and I saw that each department has targets, and it's various methods to know if they've reached the targets. I was wondering, how come it's not Treasury Board that decides what are the targets for each department?
Sorry, Ms. Vignola, when you say targets, are you talking about the actual spending authorities that have been set out?
Je vais revenir.
I was looking at your introductory remarks where you said that various organizations decide how will they report on their expenses. So my question was, how come the organization decide themselves their own targets and that there's no external audit or targets put in place by the government? And how come there are different methods of calculations? It seems to me it would be easier if the same method was used everywhere.
Thank you very much. I think what we're referring to is the related to the 2.4 billion that was listed, and perhaps Mr. Ermith, you'd have a better line of sight in being able to answer Ms. Vignola's question.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the 2.4 billion and the flexibility for departments to determine how much or their approach towards what they're capturing above and beyond the measures. What that really comes down to is, for example, when we are tracking the expenditures of time, for example, my time as a policy center supporting COVID, I would be putting an estimate of how much in a given week or in a given month I would be putting towards that. So we provided high-level guidance, and in the package that Mr. McCauley was referring to, and with some questions and answers, we provided detailed explanations of what each of those categories were, whether or 20%, and whether or not there's a threshold. We recommended a 50% of a person's time was left up to the departments to a certain extent. But in terms of the expenditures related to measures that Mr. Purvis was talking about, that would be pulled, departments would be looking at that in terms of what they actually had spent on those specific measures. Thank you.
Les méthodes utilisées pour les...
So the different methods used for verification, are they the same? Are they normalized or standardized? And if not, why? It seems to me it would be more efficient and more transparent if they were.
So thanks for the question. Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the goals is to try and have as consistent and relatable data that's coming in. And again, in terms of the program expenditures, where departments are looking at, in particular, the measures, it's pretty clear. Some of the bigger challenges start to come in again with in terms of the 2.4 billion that we referred to, where departments have to. It's a management's best estimate in terms of what and how much time would be going towards those activities.
En bout de ligne.
So, to be more transparent, how often do departments have to enter data in Titan, and how is it validated?
So thank you for the question. In terms of the data is entered into Titan on a monthly basis. Departments collect the data from within their own departments, signed off at the departmental level, and then entered into Titan. When it's entered into Titan then, through the Treasury Board Secretariat, we then do some high-level spot sort of reasonableness checks in terms of the level of expenditures, in terms of looking for any anomalies, et cetera. But at the end of the day, again, the information is the department's information in terms of what and how that gets rolled up at the end of the year. Again, that data will be rolled into the public accounts, the validation that will go along with that at that time.
Est-ce que toutes les informations
Is all the data entered into Titan public?
At this point, in terms of the data that we've provided, in terms of the March, I believe 17th report, is that's the information that we have, and that's all of the data that we have rolled up at that report.
Okay.
And I think the question becomes if there's a desire for the committee to see more information in a greater level of granularity, then we can obviously take that into account.
Merci.
Thank you.
Il me reste du temps, Monsieur le Président?
Do I have any more time left, Mr. Chair?
I couldn't hear you there for a second. We have a little clearing out here. So yes, your time, the buzzer just went off just now. So yes, you're complete. Thank you, Ms. Vignola. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 6 minutes.
Thank you. In following up, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ermuth, you talked about reasonableness checks. Is this a process and procedure that is applied throughout the Treasury Board Secretariat for all expenditures? Does the TBS have a reasonableness check for all major projects and spendings across departments?
Thank you for the question. In terms of the role that Treasury Board Secretariat plays, I guess for different levels of information, there's different levels of review. I would like to note that at the end of the year, we work very closely with our colleagues at the Office of the Auditor General to make sure that the information that is captured is audited, reviewed.
I'll give you an example. In a previous meeting, we had somebody testify that in their costing estimates for the surface combat shipbuilding strategy, that it was the Treasury Board policy not to include taxation in the overall estimates of costing. Is that a policy of the Treasury Board Secretariat?
So thank you for the question. In terms of the inclusion of the taxation, that's not my area of specialty in terms of knowing that, but we could definitely get back to the committee.
Mr. Purves would probably be able to answer that better through you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Purves, do you count in your total costing for estimates the expenditures process for procurement?
Mr. Chair, I think that probably Mr. Ermuth is referring to a colleague at the OCG that might be better placed to answer that question. We would be happy to get back to you with an answer on that.
I'm unclear how you can answer the question about whether or not the Treasury Board Secretariat would include in its considerations of reasonableness taxes as an estimate, including in procurement. Help me understand how you. So let me ask the question another way through you, Mr. Chair. When you're doing reasonableness checks on procurement on contracts, is it often the case that you would include taxes in the total estimate? Mr. Ermuth,
so
you have it.
So again, Mr. Chair, on this one, I'll have to come back. In terms of the costing, for reasonableness, the costs that are being proposed, we would be able to, in terms of the calculation of taxes, be able to determine the appropriate tax rate, but the exact policy in terms of what or how taxes are handled through that process, as I said, I would have to come back to you.
Well, I'll just remind you that on the Surface Combat Shipbuilding Program, there's a material difference between what the Parliamentary Budget Officer has costed, $77 to $82 billion, versus what the Department of National Defense has costed, which is, that seems to be a material gap, which to me would flag in the TBS a reasonableness check. If what I'm hearing now is that that hasn't been the case and you're unfamiliar with that file, I look forward to your response. I'm to understand that one of the ways in which we hold departments, is that correct for you?
That is correct. Actually, the
And I-
departmental
and I
plans
heard-
and departmental results reports as well.
So let me ask you something. Why is it the
Mhm.
Department of National Defense took out the status report on transformational and major Crown corporate projects? It had been included before, but it's not included now.
I believe there was a change in the policy pertaining to it, which would apply to what departments are obliged to report in the departmental plans and departmental results reports. But I think what
So,
we
like,
should
for
do
instance,
is,
if I wanted an update in the departmental plans on the surface building, surface combat shipbuilding, and it's no longer there, it's no longer listed, I'm wondering, was that a decision that was made by the Treasury Board Secretariat, or is it just at the whim of department want to report it and how they want to report it?
no, there's often guidelines that are provided to departments on the preparation of their departmental plans and their departmental results reports.
So how would they be reporting back to
be
Parliament? And I'm going to say this through you, Mr. Chair, to be clear and on the record. I am very concerned about the opening exchange between yourself and Mr. Macaulay and what has been available versus what has been presented to this committee. There's been an ongoing theme with this committee where it seems like departments are unwilling to provide us with information that's readily at hand. And so when I look at a change in how departments, we're not talking small line items here. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars, but there's nowhere that the public can go and see. So how are we supposed to report back to the public on these types of expenditures if it's not included?
Mr. Chair, on Mr. Green's second question there, just pertaining to the policy, we're happy to get back to him again on that point. And again, I will state that it is absolutely the interest of the Treasury Board Secretariat to provide this committee with all disaggregated data that is used in that March 17th report. We have no objections with that.
Certainly not by screenshot, right? We're going to get in a real document.
Titan effectively is Titan collects information and puts it into a database, and we're able to provide all information that we collect from departments and agencies that roll up to that March 17th report. That March 17th report is a year-to-date report, and we are happy to provide that disaggregated information.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. Thank you, Mr. Green. We'll go to Mr. Paul Hughes for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pavs. What we've seen as information as a response has made us doubt even more the transparency of this whole affair, be it the operational capacity that simply does not exist, that you cannot provide us the information because of low capacity, or perhaps you don't even want to give us this information. There are secret contracts that still haven't been shared with us. Is someone telling you not to share this information with us, or is there simply not enough capacity to provide this information to us?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Paul Hughes. We, from March 10th to March 17th, we put together a report that we thought would be transparent, which would be to be able to engage departments on the spending momentum of COVID-19, and that would be timely. And we have no issues with providing the disaggregated data attached to it. When we collect this disaggregated data, though, we all have comments. So as you can imagine,
Mr. Pavs, if I may, are there certain departments that are hiding information from you? Because usually you have access to everything. Because the Parliamentary Budget Officer mentioned in their report that they didn't understand why there was such an issue in access to information. And so when we see this, it's as if someone is hiding something somewhere along the line. We don't know. That's why we're trying to figure out why things are being hiding from us. We're not accusing anyone. What we expect is to get as much detail as possible. Otherwise, we'll have doubts. I don't have a lot of time, so I have another specific question with regards to $159 billion expenditures for COVID support measures. That's why we're here today. I would like to know what part of this $159 billion amount went directly to rapid testing and vaccinations.
When you say the 100, I heard expenditures, but those are actually the spending authorities. Was it the authorities you were asking about?
I know.
Was it about?
Non, mais maintenant,
Yes, I just want to know, just out of that 159, how much has been spent on vaccines and on rapid testing?
So I can tell you how much has been spent according to the category that vaccines as well as medical research has been dedicated towards. I believe, and I have the information here. If you just give me a second here. In terms of it's encompassed under further support for medical research and vaccine developments, and I believe the amount is close to $2 billion as of the end of January 31st, 2021.
Ça would be $2 milliards dans le fond qui aurait été.
So it's $2 billion that were invested into vaccination research, but there was a $13 billion authorization and $1.5 billion went to COVAX, but we don't know where the rest of the money went. Can you send the details of all these amounts to the committee, please? Because we don't have enough time just for questioning.
Happy to respond to the committee. Yeah.
Okay. Également, l'information.
We got information about a company that was supposed to do rapid testing, Spartan. The amount of money that was sent to Spartan has to reimburse this money to the federal government because they didn't deliver what they promised. And so is Canada making sure that it's being reimbursed for this?
We would be happy to follow up with the Public Health Agency of Canada and the PSPC with respect to that question and get back to the committee, of course.
Okay. Également.
A question with regards to fraud. We heard that there are some companies that offered PPE. Some had contracts that they did not respect. Do you have determined every single case of fraud and have measures been implemented to recoup this money or to make sure that our money will come back into our coffers?
That is a question that we could direct to the Department of Public Services and Procurement Canada and get back to the committee on.
Parfait. Do I
still have time?
Just, you have 2 seconds, so we are finished at this point in time. Thank you, Mr. Paulhoos. We'll go to Mr. Weiler for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank our two witnesses, Mr. Purvis and Mr. Irmith, for joining our committee again here today, as well as for providing the state of spending at a truly extraordinary time in a very detailed manner as well. There's lots of important information in this report that will allow us to do a better job, do our job a little bit better, as well as to provide transparency of spending for all Canadians, of course, at a time of emergency. I do have a few questions about the nature of your report, however. In your report, you explained the scope of the collection effort, but I was hoping you could provide why some COVID-19 measures are not tracked by TBS and are not included in this report.
I'd be happy to answer that question, Mr. Chair. In the context of how we manage spending authorities for estimates, documents for supplementary estimates, primarily in the realm of appropriation-dependent organizations. And so if it's a situation, I'll give you an example where the Department of National Defense has their Vote 1 on operating and they draw funds with the authority of Parliament from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. That's within our scope, okay? But if it's a situation where a department either has statutory authority to draw funds either from and to make transfers either from the Income Tax Act or the EI Act, and to draw it from the EI operating account and so forth, something that is beyond the scope of an appropriation-dependent department, those programs effectively are out of scope in terms of what we focus on in the estimates. So our intent has always been to be able to collect the information that is best within our swim lanes, and that is the bulk of what we would call the direct support measures under the economic response plan for COVID-19. So when we put out our report, we were able to follow the same measures that are the same measures that are in the estimates. And so people can actually take a measure and compare it to the spending authorities that a department has received in order to spend, and they can compare it to what was approved and set out in the fiscal plan in the fall economic statement. When I talk about financial transparency, when I talk about financial literacy, comprehension, utility, it's really ensuring that parliamentarians are able to have that map back. And that's what we can control. Amount of engagement, and now these are for incremental authorities that have been provided over the year. But in addition to that, you know, the effort to provide a sense, a line of sight as to the spending that had been redirected to be able to address COVID-19. That is something that is separate and distinct, but that we're still trying to collect that information on a monthly basis. And again, we would be happy to provide the disaggregated data for both the measures, but also that collective effort as well, and to be able to provide this to this committee.
Thank you for that. I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of interest within our committee for just that. But back to the report that you submitted here, how was the format of the report decided upon?
The format of the report was ensuring transparency, something that was useful to parliamentarians and committee members, and something that was able to be generated in a timely basis. When we collect all this disaggregated information, we have the numbers with it, and so we're committed to being to providing that disaggregation back to the committee, but at the same time, it takes the year's worth of monthly comments, but we're happy to do that.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left?
Bell just went, so we will now go to Ms. Vignola for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to note that the connection issues continue, and that unfortunately, I've never heard so many words such as inaudible, and the connection keeps dropping. I'm sorry for our interpreters in any case. Their work must not be easy right now. In the information document we got to prepare for this meeting, I was studying the various expenditures, and I saw that the National Capital Commission received emergency help for commercial rent. So who exactly got this money? Why did the NCC receive this money?
If Madame Vignola, if you're talking about the 1.9 million budgetary voted amount, we're happy to get back to you. That is an answer that the National Capital Commission could certainly furnish us with, and we can actually get back to you on that.
Thank you very much. For the national battlefields, when will we see the amount for staff of the Battlefields Commission that were Phoenix victims, so the compensation that will be given them because of their Phoenix issues. In what budget will this compensation appear?
Est-ce que c'est
Is it going to be in this one or the next one?
Okay, so in the National Battlefields Commission, you're speaking about the budgetary voted amount. Right now, it's zero as of end of January, and our intention is to provide an update on April 15th that would include the February information, and we will see if there's additional amounts that have been spent by the organization. There, the budgetary statutory amount of 1.1 is an amount that's already been spent.
So nothing about Phoenix compensation. Okay, so recently in the news.
I apologize. That might be something that's separate and distinct. What's been tagged as a COVID-19 item. It may be gone through, but we're happy to follow up with them on that.
Thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you, Ms. Vignola. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Purves. How much money has been approved to date in direct measure supports for tax liquidity support and other liquidity and capital relief to respond to the COVID-19 respectively?
I don't have that information. I think the Department of Finance would be best placed to answer that question.
So in the reporting, you have the disaggregated data line by line. Do you have aggregated data per category? Like, are there places where some of these things are grouped together more than just by department?
So we have, when you think about it in the framing that you put it, health and safety, direct supports, and then there's the capital and then the liquidity supports. We really focus on chapters 1 and 2 of the fall economic statement. And those are measures that effectively have received funding through the Public Health Events of National Concerns Payments Act, and also other statutory authorities, as well as coming through in terms of voted authorities.
So would the cash
estimates.
paper buyback program from the Bank of Canada be part of one of those spending authorities?
No, it wouldn't. It would be separate and distinct. It would probably be on the liquidity side. The Department of Finance is the one that would be best placed to answer those questions, because they would be tracking on the liquidity side.
But wouldn't the Treasury Board also have a role and responsibility in terms of the tracking of expenditures?
Expenditure, if it's liquidity support, that would be separate and distinct from our realm, which is items that run through the estimates. So the Bank of Canada, it's not an appropriation-based organization.
But would tax liquidity supports outside of the Bank of Canada also fall within that, or? I look at CMHC and others. I would assume that that's part of a liquidity support of some way.
There's some budgetary measures for CMHC, for instance, that fall within on the appropriation basis. But if it's something like the mortgage bond program, that's on a borrowing basis, and there's a liquidity element to it, that's separate and distinct.
I'll just share, I'm not fully confident right now that TBS has a full handle on COVID spending. I'm just going to say that it's not a personal thing through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Purvis, but just based on my questions, I'm not confident, based on the lack of abilities to answer some of these questions that have been generated, that the department has a clear scope on what's happened over COVID. And I think that there's going to be some work cut out for this committee and probably public accounts in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. We'll go to Ms. Harder for 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Mr. Purvis, one of the comments that you made is that you would provide information, and I quote, that is useful to Parliament, end quote. Can you help me understand how do you distinguish between what is useful to Parliament and what is not?
When I say useful to Parliament, our intention is always to provide whatever we provide.
So who determines that? You determine that?
It would be you that would determine that on the basis of your perspective.
But you're the one who determines what information you provide and which information you keep to yourself.
We've provided the report on March 17th. It's from you aggregated data that we've collected to date.
But that you've been collecting monthly reports since then, March 2020, I should say, sorry. And so why wasn't that information considered important to parliamentarians?
We've never said no in terms of responding to requests from parliamentarians for data.
So you'll be providing us with month-to-month reports then here to this committee according to Macaulay's motion?
Absolutely. We will provide, we responded to the motion. It was a year to date.
And you'll
it was a
provide
year
those
to
from
date.
2020?
Absolutely.
Okay, we anticipate that. Thank you. It's interesting to me, I reading through the report, I found that about $43 million was given to museums. I'm just wondering what this money was spent on.
In terms of the actual implementation of the measures from the museums, that's something that we'd have to get back to you on. We do that, you know, we're collecting this information, but in terms of the scope of implementation and so forth, it's best directed towards the departments.
So the monthly reports that you'll be providing to us, though, would give us a good understanding of how that money is being used, correct?
The monthly report would effectively provide all the data that we're collecting from the organizations.
Okay, which would help us understand how that money is being spent.
It would be the monthly information that they would be providing.
Okay, great. I raise it because $43 million was spent on museums, which I do believe that the preservation of our history is, you know, super important. But what's interesting to me, though, is that $43 million, it didn't go towards rent subsidy. It didn't go towards helping wages for those who weren't able to go to work during that time. I'm very confused as to what that $43 million went to, because last I knew, museums were full of objects or items that are being preserved in order to showcase our history. So I don't know why $43 million was needed in order to look after a vacant building when it didn't go towards wage and it didn't go towards rent. Meanwhile, about $18.9 million went towards the natural resource sector. So less than half of what went to museums went to the sector, which is people. It's our way of life. It's our fuel. It's what keeps us going. It's our future as a nation. Can you shed light on this for me?
Ms. Harder, it would give me great pleasure to go back and get the information that you're seeking on this. We will go back and we will get context on that 43 million.
Great, that would be awesome. And I trust that that information will come to me in its entirety and not be sifted through and only given what you might deem necessary for me to receive.
There is no intention to impose what the committee thinks is useful. We are here to serve the committee and to provide all information that you're seeking.
Thank you. I can appreciate that. With regards to advertising and marketing, the PCO, so Privy Council, they spent about $2 million, just over $2 million. Do you know what this was spent on?
Specifically, that $2 million was spent on by PCO.
There was a job description put out calling for 2 storytellers that were hired by the Liberal government in the fall. That was through the PV. That was also through the PCO. Do you think that $2 million perhaps went in part towards that salary?
It's not for me to speculate on the direction of that 2 million, but I will certainly get back to you on what the 2 million went towards.
Okay. And so it's my understanding then, based on this conversation that we've had today, that all of the information that has been requested by Mr. Macaulay will be granted to this committee, correct?
Yes, we will get back with all disaggregated information. We're absolutely committed to providing that transparency to the committee.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harder. We'll now go to Mr. Johari for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Parvis. It's good to see you again, sir. And thank you for all the work you're doing. There's so much been discussed around transparency. My understanding is that back in March of 2020, and you mentioned that a number of times, that the department proactively started collecting this information. Can you share with us what drove the TBS to make that decision?
At that point, it was very important that, given the fact that we were not set up to, I think, as a system, actively collect both, track authorities, but also collect expenditure information based on an event. The intention was to get the system as a whole moving in that direction, and to thinking about collecting this information on that basis. As I've said in the past on this call, there is a lot of innovations that have gone into collecting on that basis. We started with Excel. I think Mr. McCauley mentioned the first email, but we've migrated to a system called Titan, which is effectively where departments input information, and it allows us to be able to access it in a data warehouse. So
yeah, that's great. So moving into Titan, back actually on January 13 of 2021, the federal government published a guideline entitled Titan Guidance COVID-19 Expenditure. And this guideline is telling departments, I assume, how to use the Titan system and what information goes into it. Now, we also have another system, GC Infobase, that present the information around spend authorities. Often you've drawn a distinction between spending authorities and expenditure. Can you shed some light for those who may not be familiar with the Titan and GC Infobase? Which system is used for what?
Sure. So Titan is about collecting data from departments and having that input centrally. It's about achieving efficiency in terms of how we're collecting the data. And so there's various interfaces where departments can input their data and submit it along. And then we have it in our database to be able to validate and do all sorts of assurances. GC Infobase is much more about the interface with the public, and in terms of ensuring transparency with the public on issues such as financials of the government, results, people. If you're interested in a department, you can go into all different breakdowns of spending and operations of the department. And as well, we've got a COVID interface there as well, where we include the spending authorities. Now, GC Infobase is spending authorities in one place that has been useful for Canadians to be able to access. And we'll continue to expand our use of GC Info for Canadians.
A little bit about, if I can ask, can you go into a little bit more detail around the data that's being collected in Titan? For example, is it possible for me to reach out and say, can TBS give me information about expenditure at my riding level for anything that was related to COVID-19? And I'm assuming when you say spending by event, COVID is an event, and the spendings are tracked. Is such a thing possible?
We don't have anything earmarked according to region specifically on GC Infobase. We have it more on the basis of the itself and the measure. So there to look at the COVID side, it allows you to. It has a link to of the fall economic statement, and where decisions are made, and then it has the actual authorities' panes there for supplementary estimates A, B, and C. We've also included the pane for what's in the main estimates for 21-22 pertaining to COVID-19 as well. For idea is that parliamentarians, Canadians can access this. It helps with their presenting of questions to the various departments responsible for those measures.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis, and thank you, Mr. Johari. Thank you. That ends our questions and for today, and I want to thank Mr. Irmuth and Mr. Purvis for bearing with us with the technical difficulties we had in the first part of the meeting, and I appreciate you sticking with us. After this ends the public portion of our meeting, and so what will happen is we will go in camera. Members of the committee will have to exit and then re-enter again for the in-camera portion. And you have the information and the contact numbers sent to you, so we will see you in a couple of minutes. And with that said, we will suspend the meeting.